Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm here again with Dillon Lange, and we are going to talk about the first two episodes of Dune Prophecy. So, overall, Dillon, what'd you think?
Overall, so far, so good. I remember we were chatting about it, and I said that I was a little skeptical of it, but was still kind of intrigued and hoping for the best. And so far, I am enjoying it. I do remember thinking with the first episode, kind of the opening moments, I was like, oh, they're piling a lot on here for us, and a lot of characters and a lot of stuff. And it didn't quite click for me until kind of towards the ending, where there were some pretty shocking things. Burning a child from the inside out is pretty shocking. And definitely an attention grabber. And then episode 2, I thought, other than one scene, I thought really kind of captured some of that Dune magic that I really like. And it was just like, we got to dive a little bit deeper into all of the characters, a little bit deeper into the story and the mystery and everything. And I really liked episode 2, and I can't wait to see episode 3.
That's about where I am. I kept thinking, oh, don't end yet. What's going to happen next? So
Yeah.
actually, it was really keeping me kind of on the edge of my seat there. And it's like, okay, so now I have to wait another week. So yeah, I don't get to binge it like Netflix. I'm going to wait another week now.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they'd thrown all 6 of them up there, I'm sure I would have seen them go out twice already. But I like this first episode. I saw a lot of people having problems with the pacing. I didn't really have a problem with it. I might, if I've watched it twice now. I went back maybe for a third time now, having seen the second episode. Maybe I think, well, this was a lot slower. But while I was watching it, I thought it was pretty interesting, and I just liked it. So yeah, it got me into the world, and I liked the way everything looked, and
yeah, it's a good looking show is one of the major takeaways. Like I don't really have any complaints with it visually so far. And again, we were kind of chatting before recording about how you and I both had a little bit of the concern that, it doesn't seem like a whole lot has changed in 10,000 years from the trailers, but now actually having seen the show, I actually think that they've done a really good job at making some of these planets that we've already seen in Denis Villeneuve's Dune look radically different. Like Getty Prime is this snow planet, it looks like. It has not been completely turned into some smog underworld. In fact, it's really cool getting to see some Harkonnens that aren't really pale and bald. That clearly, through whatever genetic experimentation they do on themselves over the 10,000 years, gets them to where they're at by the time we see Paul and Fade and everything.
They haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
But then it's interesting too that the Harkonnens are right back there at the beginning of the Sisterhood, and it's a Harkonnen who invents the voice.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I have not read these prequels from Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. So I don't really know what happens. So sometimes I'm wondering because I know that this Desmond Hart character is supposed to be new, like he's not in the books. So they can do anything with him because he's just made up for this show. But I don't know who's in the books, So like they said that the Harkonnens got exiled to this planet they're calling Lankavin.
Yeah.
Is Lankavin Getty Prime? I don't know.
Who knows? What I do know, I also haven't really read the prequel novels, but I've done a couple wiki dives and stuff just out of curiosity for the new show. Excuse me. And I do know that, like, I think only one of the sisters of the Harkonnen sisters are like share a name with a character in the book. Otherwise, pretty much everything, even the Emperor has like a new name. I don't know if this is the team at HBO going, hey,
we'd like more freedom.
We would like more freedom and everything. This is a new interpretation of Dune, so we would like our own kind of interpretation of the past and history. I'm not too sure, but certainly is very different from some of the stuff I've heard about the Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson prequels. I do know they lean more towards the kind of supernatural, fantastical elements of Dune and make it more kind of straight up magic than Herbert did.
Mhm.
Uh, Herbert's stuff was always kind of like, it's like they can read their minds, each other's minds, but they're not actually doing that. It's just characterized that way because so that we can comprehend it. Um, and I know that that's kind of where some of my reservations with the Desmond Hart character comes from, is that he has this seemingly magic power to melt people.
Mhm.
Um, and why that is, if it is that it was like a power gifted to him by the sandworm, that's just magic, and that's not really Dune to me. So I would have a couple qualms with that, but I've got a couple different ideas that I think you and I have talked a little bit about,
Mhm.
with it possibly being a Bene Tleilax creation.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, I was saying about that. Everyone seems to think he must be a Gola, but he seems to have Desmond Hart's memories, and at least, unless the Tleilaxu forget how to do that in the meantime, they don't know how to give Golas their memories, in Paul's time. It takes them a long time and keep making Gola after Gola after Gola for Leto II before they finally figure it out thousands of
yeah,
years later,
I was going
But
to say I forgot that is actually a pretty major plot point that Golas
yeah,
don't remember what's
right.
going on.
Mm-hmm.
Could be a face dancer.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
could be an Ixian creation, or I know there's a character named Erasmus, who is super tied to like the Butlerian Jihad prequel novels. He's like straight up like the big bad robot emperor.
Okay.
Um, I'm leaning kind of more towards, because of how much that first episode kind of leaned into some of the Machine Crusade stuff. I'm kind of leaning towards he might have something to do with either the Ixians who make technology that is constantly skirting the edge of what's legal, or if it's possibly one of the robot soldiers who have come back
Yeah, is he
somehow.
a thinking machine? Is it the clue that he's the one who stabbed the little lizard, right? That
Yeah,
Yeah, that he's a thinking machine too. We don't know.
they lean
Um,
into it a little bit.
a little bit. Some of the people who've been the recaps I've been looking at think he might have been trained or created by the witches of Rossock or something, who are like another pre.
Yeah,
I don't know what their powers were though, but they were apparently one of the groups that started the sisterhood. But I guess they're still an independent group, so.
yeah. I
Um,
heard I heard some speculation that he might have some type of Bene Gesserit training because of the fact that he's able to, uh, in an absolutely fantastic scene, stop the voice from working on him.
right.
That's a great scene of getting to see these two different, very powerful characters kind of just get to have this one-on-one confrontation.
Mhm. A little arm wrestling contest. Yeah, and people are reading that different ways. Several of the recap people thought that he didn't know if he'd be able to resist it, and so he was like enjoying like throwing himself against her will and seeing if he could win. I kind of figured he just knew that and then he was just pretending to kind of to give her some false confidence, and then just put his knife away, like, see, haha. So
There's that
I guess you could take it either
smile.
way. Yeah.
He's got that smile at the end of that scene that kind of makes it seem like he was just playing with her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, again, he's this big enigma that I'm really curious how that's all gonna play out.
Yeah. And we've got this kind of weird mystery with him, I guess, and the Empress. They both use like the term Shai Hulud.
yeah,
Why? Why would the Empress say that? Why not just say the worm?
yeah, it does seem a
If she's not
little,
from Arrakis, if she's not a Fremen, it seems like she
it,
wouldn't know that term.
and it seems a little early in the timeline too that like that phrase would maybe develop.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just a little bit of an oversight to make people go, "Oh yeah, this is Dune." Um, which so far we haven't really seen Arrakis outside of a couple nightmare sequences and
The
a
hologram.
hologram. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, which I'm curious to see just how much the actual surface of Arrakis plays into the show, because it's certainly an important piece. Like the royal wedding that's going on,
Mhm.
or happened in the first episode, is all like a way to gain military power on Arrakis, to keep a stronghold on spice for the
Mhm.
Lion Throne.
Right.
um, so I like that element, that so far it's kind of just this, like, it's important but like off in the distance.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I'm curious as the timeline because I didn't think the Fremen were on Arrakis 10,000 years. I thought they had emigrated there later. And that
a
so and then how long has it been completely desert? Because Stilgar's, at least in movies, like, well, he'll bring the Lisa and El Gabe will bring back the trees, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, then are they remembering that when there were trees? How long was it, And so I don't know if I need to like do some kind of deep dive and try to figure out how long Arrakis has looked like it does in Paul's time. But we seem to be talking about Fremen a lot and about being on Arrakis. I thought they kind of went later, and they were like, these Zen Sunni wanderers, and then one of the places they end up was Arrakis, and
It's
maybe there'll be a different form of the Fremen if we ever see them. Maybe it'll be quite the way they are 10,000 years later.
so
Yeah.
basing it just off the back of the book that I have on my shelf right now,
Okay.
which is the first book in the Butlerian Jihad trilogy that Brian wrote, Brian and Kevin. It seems like they set up the Zen Sunni wanderers, and how they declare themselves the free men of Dune. So that's 100-ish years
Before
before
this, yeah.
this.
So they've been there a short amount of time at this point.
Yeah, but who knows how long it's been a desert? Because I think this still takes place like 20,000 years in our future.
Right. Yeah, the guild is formed like 10,000 years from now or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Still no mention of Chom,
Mm-hmm.
which is a little bit of a shame, but I definitely clapped at the one mention of the Spazing Guild. Uh, I'm hoping they play a little bit more of a part here because they're cool and weird. Um, and super important as well, in a weird sense, even though they barely show up in the books. They are like really important. But yeah, I do like that we do kind of get, again, with what was how was it pronounced, the Richisi,
Yeah,
uh
cheesy. Yeah.
uh House Richizi. I like that we got to see a different great house than just the Harkonnens and Atreides,
Mm-hmm.
because it kind of seemed like they were just going to keep doing that. Whenever the opening monologue talks about, there was an Atreides warrior who won the battle while a Harkonnen ran away.
Yeah. So one thing I think that's been pretty interesting and I'm liking is that they're dealing with prophecy, right? But prophecy's hard, right? Because you never know until you can look back on it later, right? And say, oh, that was when the prophecy came true or whatever. So we've got Valia continually trying to interpret this prophecy that Raquel gave on her deathbed, and she thinks it's happening right now. Whereas, it's vague enough, it could be predicting the God Emperor,
Yeah.
so and we keep seeing these blue eyes off in space, and we, at least in the David Lynch version, you got, Kyle MacLachlan saying, to Reverend Mother Gaius, if you take a look in the space or whatever, the void, I'll be there staring back at you. So you'd think, okay, that's probably Paul, but could be also Leto, but maybe it's not either of those things. And
Yeah.
so we don't know, and they don't really know, but she believes, right? That whatever Raquel is talking about is happening right now.
Yeah.
But is it? Right? Is she just misinterpreting that? Because interpreting prophecy is pretty chancy, and she risks Lila's life over thinking that it's happening right now.
Yeah. Which, again, that scene with Lila is incredible. The great suffering, or the spice suffering, whatever it's called.
The agony.
The agony. That sequence was, again, so far all of the dream sequences have been like phenomenal, but that sequence especially just captured that overwhelming chaos and noise and everything very well. Um, the thing with the prophecy, like you're saying, is that, again, it could be happening right now. It could be Paul. We don't really know. I do think that I think I saw something that was like predicting that Desmond Hart could be like a proto Kwisatz Haderach, and that
Mhm.
like he's where they get the idea to for the breeding program, where it's like it needs to be something that we can control and everything, and in a way that all of the same issues pop up again once Paul arises.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I kind of thinking, is he like a Kwisatz Haderach, you know?
yeah,
And maybe he's like a wild one, you know, and
yeah,
then that maybe they're like, oh, the next one has to be ours, right? Next time
yeah.
it happens. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
again, everything they're doing, they're like talking about, them wanting control of the throne, and we want the princess to be a member of the sisterhood so that we can have our own on the throne.
hmm
I liked that they like the political marriages are still kind of weird and problematic 20,000 years into the future, where it's like, yeah, you're going to marry this child so that you can have the control of the throne that you want while he grows up, and then his family gets a bunch of money or whatever. Like,
Yeah. It's like,
um,
I'll have 10 years. I wish you were younger. Yeah.
yeah, I thought that kid was going to be like a Joffrey. He was going to be like a villain of the show or anything. And again, quite a shocking ending.
Yeah.
They because I don't know, like during the wedding, he came across as a little bit of like a little bit of a brat.
hmm
The way he takes the pomegranate out of her hand and feeds it to himself, but then feeds her the pomegranate.
hmm
But then they have that like kind of humanizing scene with him at the party where
hmm
he's got this little toy, and you understand that a thinking machine is dangerous to have, but like you feel bad for him a little bit. You're like, oh, he is just a kid.
He's
Like,
9. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I think it was just an engagement ceremony, wasn't it? And then the wedding was to come
yeah,
later. Yeah.
something along those lines.
Yeah. Got the betrothal and then you have the wedding later. So, and it was interesting that she's going to go off to Wallach 9 and, join the sisterhood for 10 years. Right.
Yeah,
So, that would be interesting if she gets there. So the princess could be an interesting character. Um, I don't know that her half brother or the Atreides that we've met yet are all that interesting to me.
they're yeah.
And the sex scene we got, at least it advanced the plot. And I think,
In a very Game of Thrones goofy way, it did.
it's like, at least you could tell they're kind of having this, but each one has this, I'm trying to plumb the other one for information. So,
Yeah,
so it's like we're having sex, but we're really, trying to see what the other person knows.
yeah. That was the one scene I was referring to for episode 2, because I thought that it was pretty long. It was a little
hmm
bit too much to me. And I'm pro sex scene in TV shows and movies. I don't really like get offended or anything. But it was certainly like it moved the plot forward, but just because the characters were talking while doing it.
Yeah.
um I actually kind of liked the shorter and less explicit one that was in episode 1, because it felt a little more in line with Dune as well, how they're like getting high before
hmm
doing it, and I'm like, that's very Dune. Spice orgies.
Everybody's getting high. Yeah.
Yeah,
We just see them getting high a lot now. But, I guess what else is there to do in the palace? I don't know.
yeah,
Although it looks more like a fortress than a palace.
yeah,
It does. So yeah, it's interesting. Seleucus Secundus, before it turns into this terrible, horrible planet where only the strong survive, becomes Sardaukar.
yeah. I was gonna bring that up as well. Was that it's really cool to see Seleucus Secundus before. I think the canonical explanation is that like some atomics go off on it and turn it
Hmm.
into a complete nightmare wasteland of rain and suffering. um, so that's pretty cool that we get to see it as this relatively nice, almost Coruscant Naboo esque
Mhm.
uh, city planet. I'm curious. Maybe we'll get to see what happens to it by the end of the series. Maybe
Maybe.
that'll be what happens. I did also see some speculation about in one of the teasers we see uh, Desmond Hart present a group of soldiers to the Emperor, and
Mhm.
some people were wondering if that's going to be like a proto Sardaukar. Um, again, there's a lot of early things that they could kind of plant and set up. That would be cool. Again, I kind of part of me really, really wants him to be something to do with the Benny Tlaylax, just because I want them to do something with them.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't
Because
seen them yet in any adaptation, I don't think.
my
Oh,
main, well, I think the sci-fi miniseries we
maybe.
did.
Yeah, I've forgotten all about it. So
Yeah. The and my one complaint about Messiah as a novel is that they just kind of the Bene Tleilax are referred to in one sentence in the first book. Apparently, I completely forgot about it whenever I picked up Dune Messiah, and I was like, "Who are these people, and why are they apparently so important that we didn't hear about them at all?" All of the things that we hear about in Frank Herbert's first Dune, and we didn't hear about these guys that much. That's kind of weird. So part of me keeps hoping that like there'll be Easter eggs or something to set them up, but maybe they'll just do it the way that the book did.
yeah. So we get the knowledge that the Bene Gesserit don't tell their acolytes who their parents are, which was a question that my husband had when we saw Dune, and then the big reveal with Jessica, you're the daughter of the Baron, and then Paul's like, well, did Dad know? And she's like, well, I didn't know, and Paul's like, why didn't? Or my husband's like, why didn't? She know? I'm like, well, they don't tell their acolytes who their parents are because you don't know who you're gonna like make them have sex with or anything. It's just like they're part of the breeding program too, so you don't really want them to know too much. And once they become a Reverend Mother, you can't hide it from them because then their female ancestors are obviously in their head. But up until that point, then they're perfectly unaware of where they came from. So it's like, yeah, they keep them ignorant. And here we just get this flat out. Yep, they don't tell us anything.
Yeah, certainly. Again, it definitely explains a lot more than I think the movies do. The movies almost expect you to have a cursory knowledge of the book.
Probably helps.
Yeah, it certainly helps. You don't have to ask someone to pause it and explain what's going on as much. But which makes it, I guess, a little bit easier for a new audience to get into. It's one of those things where I see the reasons why, even if it's not necessarily for me. Where it's like, I understand this already. Like let's get going. But yeah. Also, I just want to say, I was reminded because I looked at Mark Strong on the poster. He is fantastic in this so far. I'm really, really liking him a lot as
I think
the
the
Emperor.
casting has been excellent. Everybody has been excellent. I think this lady, Emily Watson, who's playing Valia, has been great.
Yeah.
You can just see like her face when she and Desmond are having their face off, and you can just kind of read her face. And the same, we get this idea that the Emperor, he is not the strongest dude. His wife seems to be much more more of a backbone of steel than he has.
Certainly.
So we can kind of see where he wants to be stronger, I guess, but he doesn't really know how to be, or he can't. It's just not in him, And so having his wife and now this like super soldier weapon dude to do your bidding might kind of bolster him up a little bit. But yeah, he has a lot of going on in his face too, where you can really get this guy especially when Desmond's saying, well, I didn't tell you to kill him. Well, but you wanted me to, right? Yeah. And you could just see it cross Mark Strong's face, like, yeah, I
kind of said that, didn't I?
I did kind of want him to be dead, but I didn't act, like, see this worrying, like, it's not right that you murdered him, but at the same time, I didn't really want him, to be around here. So it's like, he's doing a great job, but everybody is, even I liked all the acolytes. Everybody seems to be well cast. I love this old girl they have playing Lila.
Yeah.
She's like so much shorter than everyone and so much slimmer than everyone, and all these other acolytes are like towering over her, and she just looks so helpless and frail. And
they did a really good job.
She is.
They did a really good job at getting someone to kind of sell the vulnerability of that character, where it's where I think Valia tells her sister, who I can't remember the name of, Tula tells her, because Laia is her favorite, Tula's favorite. Valia tells her, like, coddling is not like training or something along those lines. And yeah, they just did a really good job. I liked that montage they had of them all trying to do truth saying.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's certainly a weird thing to try to get across in a visual medium.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I don't know how well that's gonna like while I'm watching it, I'm like, I understand what's happening, but like I don't know how well other people are gonna enjoy that, like the visual aspect of the truth saying, because it's almost a little bit like with David Lynch's Dune, where you hear people's internal thoughts and stuff, and it's like maybe that's a little bit too much for some audiences, but
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard anyone really complain about that. Again, more of the complaints seem to be the usual kind of nerd nitpick stuff. Which even I expected to have more kind of nerdy nitpicks, not in the way that like some of the people who hate like Rings of Power, where it's like, they cast a woman in here, how dare they? Not like that, just the stuff where it's like I really like Frank Herbert's interpretation of Dune, and so seeing them lean into the Brian Herbert interpretations, that's not really my speed. It's not what I enjoy, but they're doing it really well, and I am liking the show. And it's
Mm-hmm.
still like it's just Dune enough that it's tickling my brain.
Yeah, and I like the way we get the whole scene with Lila getting the poison and probably get a better idea of what happens during the agony, or as they'll say in Paul's time, the spice agony. That you are going to get rushed by all these female ancestresses who are all going to want to get your attention, take over your body. They're going to get this clamoring of thousands and thousands of voices, and you're going to have to corral them somehow while you obviously save yourself from the poison. I mean, you have multiple things you've got to get done here while
Yeah.
you're in agony. Yeah, it's tricky. And the fact that she dies, although I didn't want her to die, it it shows that this is a dangerous thing, right? In the movies, even when Paul says like what happens, and then his mother just says, "Well, it's lethal for men, that's for sure." And it's like, yeah, that's not really what he asked.
Yeah.
But because it's often lethal for women too, and you have quite a few characters in Heretics of Dune and Chapter House Dune who don't make it through the spice agony, and they're characters you follow for like hundreds of pages, and then it's they decide that it's time or whatever to finish her training, become Reverend Mother, and they don't make it. So like you can finish your poor Lila wasn't even finished with her training, but you can finish your training and still die. It's not guaranteed you're going to make it through. So that the whole dangerous part, it never gets any safer 10,000 years later, and it certainly wasn't safe for Lila. And I think that I think they were kind of lying to her. Well, I'm sure you can make it. With some help, I'll be there with you. And I'm like, she can't do it.
Follow my voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it was a great scene, and there's sort of these weird wraiths just sort of like flocking around her, and
Yeah. Again, visually stunning. The way that they characterize like or visualize the like firing of neurons with like lightning inside of that realm is really cool. I'm one of the characters that I'm also really curious to see what her deal is I can't remember her name. She's the redhead.
Like Jen or Jan or something like that.
Yeah. And she seems to have like she's not totally blindly loyal to the sisterhood.
She got a chip on her shoulder or something, right? And she didn't take the truth telling whatever very seriously. And then she gives them this story about killing her parents or whatever and laughing about it. Yeah, and now she doesn't want Lila to do this, and which is a good advice, but yeah, it's what's her deal will be interesting. And then we also get that Theodosia's like, my past or whatever, my issues. When Delia says you're coming with me to the palace, and then my issues. Well, we're just gonna have to cope with whatever. And so we don't know what Theodosia's past has got in it. Clearly, there's something. So a lot of people seem to have things in their past. And we do leave the mystery of who Lila's mother is open. I guess Tula must know who her mother is, and we're told it's not Tula. I guess it could be, but because when she asked, will my mother be there, and Tula's like, well, I can't promise that your mother would be there. But she could be. And she's like, well, she could be, right? And then when she gets there and meets her grandmother, Dorothea, then, Dorothea's like, she's not here, clearly
Yeah.
referencing the mother character. So it's like, why isn't her mother there? Right. Um,
And could she
eh,
be meaning that in like a literal way or in a like, she's blocking her from being in that moment or something? There could be a couple different ways to
mhm.
interpret that. Um,
Is that
but
going to be important later? I hope so, since they've left it open.
yeah. Oh, and maybe Jen, whatever her name is part of like that rebellion that
Mm,
they're setting up as well. Uh that would be maybe kind of interesting.
mm,
Who knows? Again, it's Dune. Every character so far has some type of personal motivation completely different from everyone else's. Even though I agree that I don't really like the bastard son as much, or the like the sword master, who I think is an Atreides, right?
right.
I don't necessarily like them as much as some of the other characters going on. They still at least have motivations that
Mhm,
you know make them characters and not just objects standing there. Which
mhm.
this could have easily been. There's a lot of TV shows like that. um,
Yeah,
and yeah,
everything's
and
been pretty well delineated to keep them straight on who's who, considering this is a pretty large cast.
yeah, it definitely helps that they've cast a lot of very striking looking people. I don't think
Hmm.
any of them are like forgettable in terms of facial features and everything. And even though I'm pretty bad with names, so even though it's hard for me to remember every character's name, I know each character
Hmm.
and what they're doing and why they're doing it. And that's phenomenal, honestly. Like, that's a step up from what a lot of other shows do sometimes, where it's just like, okay, well, why am I watching this? I have a really bad habit of dropping television, and so far this is keeping me engaged, and I'm looking forward to each episode.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I was
uh,
counting down the days. I mean, I was like, okay, it's gonna drop at 8. I think at 9 Eastern, 8 Central. I'm telling Todd, I'm like, so is it at 8 o'clock tonight? We can try to, and then we didn't watch it till 9:30, but still.
yeah,
And now I'm like, okay, I got 6 more days before I can see episode 3.
yeah,
So yeah, I was. In fact, I kept thinking to myself during that episode, "Oh, don't stop now! Don't let this be the last scene. I want to keep seeing what's going to happen, and how we're setting all these things up." So yeah, of course, I,
it's
I am I am one of those people who likes setting things up, parts of stories more than the tying things together at the end. I am like still prefer Dune 1 over Dune 2.
yeah.
But so the whole setting everybody up and putting all these pieces on the board has really got me sitting on my edge of my seat.
Oh yeah. Again, it's doing a lot better of a job than I was prepared for. I'm surprised by it. And again, and even like the timelines that I have on like social media seemed like to be not excited for the show, and that was almost affecting some of my excitement for it.
Mm,
But now that it's out, I'm like, I'm really enjoying it. It's again, it's a little guilty of some of the like prestige television stuff of, here's a sex scene just cuz, and uh you know
mm-hmm.
but it's still good.
Yeah.
um I there oh I lost my train of thought there. uh there was something. Oh, you talking about like, not wanting it to end, episode 2 especially. Like, it helps that they had that like back to back moment of Laya's agony scene, and then the confrontation of Desmond and Valia. It's like, yeah, that's like, those are two phenomenal scenes that you're like, okay, where is this going? I want to know. And then it ends, you're like, no. um
And it's
but
interesting too that when he said, "I know what your main fear is now,"
yeah,
it's that people will hear you and they won't care.
yeah.
And she's cared so much all these 30 plus years to like get the Harkonnens, to redeem their name or whatever, and what she plans to do, like things like taking over the throne, which most people probably think more criminal than good, I suppose. But anyway, she has been pretty single-minded here for a long time, and
Her
trying to push her agenda on everyone else, including the emperor. And now it's like, oh, now this guy's gotten between her and the emperor.
Yeah. her baggage with the Harkonnens also is kind of interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes, because she specifically says, tell the Harkonnens no a fourth time about receiving a truth sayer.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, okay, she clearly, is it just like a sense of, you know, I'm better than my family name and I need to establish that, or what? Because she also still has like a vendetta, because she hears like the Atreides name or something, and like you can see it on her face. She looks kind of upset about it.
A chance of taking Atreides down.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see where that goes. I mean, it makes sense that it's been a family feud for millennia, I guess, with it being, you know, Dune. But I guess I didn't realize that it was like 10,000 years long. How long these families have been fighting. You'd think at some point they'd get rid of the other, but I guess when it's like constant chess games of like, you know, not actually going against each other, but like, you know, placing pieces here and pieces there. A little bit like the actual political landscape of the world. With some superpowers where it's like, we haven't gone after each other, but we'll do stuff here and there.
Yeah. So I guess basically, long and the short of it, I enjoyed it. You clearly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
We'll come back to talk about, I guess, episodes maybe 3 and 4 next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we'll have episodes 5 and 6, and that's all there is. 6 episodes.
That seems short.
I know, we're a third of the way through.
That's my one fear moving forward, is that it seems a little short. I don't know if they plan on a season 2. I hope if they set one up, we get one.
Yeah.
Too many shows get canceled at season 1 nowadays.
That's right. So, okay. Well, thanks for joining us. And remember, if you like this, and hit like and subscribe, possibly, you know, tap on that little bell icon so you know when I put up more videos. And we will come back at you with more Dune in a couple of weeks. Thanks for coming, Dillon.
Thanks for having me.